Budget 2014 was presented earlier this afternoon in the National Assembly by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashni Singh. And once again, the budget is geared at the continuation of development and the transformation of Guyana and contains a number of measures to improve lives of Guyanese. Here to touch on some of these measures and other aspects of the budget, we have here some of my colleagues, starting from my right, Mr. Kwame McCoy, Present Publicity Officer, Office of the President, Editor-in-Chief Acting of the NCN Newsroom, Ms. Sharda Lal, Senior Editor, Mr. Edward Lane, and Independent Media Consultant, Mr. Dario McClellan. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this discussion. Let me start here with Mr. McCoy. As I said in my opening, a budget that is once again geared to propel Guyana's forward advancement. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, first of all, I must commend the Minister of Finance and the government for one of the country's largest budget. It's now $220 billion, more than last year. And in fact, it represents a budget that gears to, provides rather, something for everyone. If you listen to Dr. Ashni Singh's presentation in the budget, the measures contained in the national budget, right across the country, he highlighted significant resources from the budget to assist from farmers to teachers to ICT to agriculture. All the different sectors have been able to benefit our pensioners, youth, children. All of these persons of our society are beneficiaries from the national budget 2014. Budget represents this budget, of course, represents a continuation of the government's investment in its people, its infrastructure, creating greater competitiveness, bringing in greater investments into our country. So I think that it is a budget that one could only commend. And I know that as the debate will unfold coming next Monday, the 31st, we'll see what some others have to say about the budget, in particularly the opposition, how they will be able to, what they will have to say about the budget in general.
All right, let me bring here Ms. Lal. The budget was held under the theme, was delivered under the theme, A Better Guyana for All Guyanese. And one of the things that are coming out, or one of the many good things that are coming out here, no new taxes. I know you were telling me earlier that there was some anticipation of some of the measures for relief, and here is one saying no new taxes.
I think a lot of people would welcome that, and yes, I was looking at that because I was following from the part last year.
So let's go through some of these then. So let me bring in Dar. I'm going to come back to Eddie. Eddie was one day anchorman down at the presentation coming live from the National Assembly. So basically, there are many measures, and I'm sure some of them will pop out from you. So let me start with Dario. What struck you from the measures of the budget?
I think it's clear that what the government has presented in this budget 2014 is the progressive agenda being advanced. Over the past couple of years, we've seen some massive transformative projects being implemented that can catapult Guyana from where it is into leaps and bounds beyond where we are on that developmental paradigm. This year, what you saw is a nice flow from last year. Last year, one of the biggest measures announced was the interest relief for mortgages. Now, that has now started reaping in terms of benefits. People have now been filling out the forms, and people are now about to get the benefits from that. And then this year you have the seniors getting 50% increase on the relief, the subsidy for electricity, even though they have not gotten a significant increase on their take-home pension as they got last year. $500 more this year, or $600. But you now have 50% more on the subsidy for electricity, which I think is significant. I'm very, very excited about the fact that this country will now be cleaned up, And it's not just an approach where we're going to hire a couple of trucks and we'll just go pick up the garbage. It's an action plan, a community-driven action plan, getting people involved in that progressive agenda. And so among those, there's some other measures that I thought were significant. The $10,000 per child for every child you have in public school.
Let's examine them, and maybe anyone free to come in here. Let's start with the city cleanup, but this is basically not only for Georgetown City. This is for the municipalities.
Countrywide.
$1 billion, I'm told. Let's talk a bit about that. 500 million going to clean up the city of Georgetown. Eddie.
Thanks, Niaz. I think that is significant. We have heard complaints over and over about the state of the city, and the reality is that the city council seem incapable of dealing with the situation in the city. Again, central government is playing a part, and here it's a much bigger role in a more comprehensive way to address the issue of the city. So I think that is very significant in terms of one of the measures. Many people may want to see the money added to their salaries and so forth. This is something that is taking on a different dimension in terms of improving the lives of citizens. And of course, it's extended to other parts of the country.
Well, sanitation and health, they're important because if you're going to talk about a society progressing, we must be able to have sanitation and health as a key element in that in the welfare of our citizens. And I think indeed it's a commendable initiative. The Minister of Finance $1 billion for the sanitation and health environment issues, and this is right across the country, and you'll have communities leading these initiatives. Now here again is part of, you see, the government being consistent with its inclusionary participatory democracy concept, that people will be driving these initiatives within these communities, and I think that is important. When you look at what the pensioners will be having, 50% increase on their electricity, what you call their support for electricity. Now this is important, and I think it's important particularly from the perspective that electricity is one of the burdens that our ordinary man and woman has with them in this country, and hence the government's commitment to hydroelectricity, the Amila Fall project. You remember the opposition cut this last year, and in fact not cutting from the budget, I should say. They did not support the legislation to have the Amila hydro project coming in stream. And I think that the contribution to the sustenance of the Linden electricity project program, because here again, for every Lindener, the government will be giving $23,000 per household for electricity this year. So that's significant because we know the paltry amounts paid in Linden and the efforts to bring them on par with the rest of the national grid. So I think that this is well structured. When you look at the budget, you have something for everyone.
And to come to it, it's $3.2 billion
for Linden.
For Linden, and another $3.7 billion to support GPL capital expenses for 2014. But Dario, I want to come back to you. You also spoke about an allowance for a child.
This is across the board, from nursery, primary, secondary. Every child in the public school system will get an allowance of $10,000 each child. So if you have 6 children in the public school system, you're getting $60,000 per year. That is money that could be used for something else.
Yeah.
For your children's development. Maybe after a long time you were able to put in something else in the home that the whole family can benefit. You were not able to afford that all the time. Now you have a relief of $60,000 from your pocket. Not having to spend money for their upkeep, uniforms and whatever else it will cover, but it's significant.
And also it comes with a team, a better Guyana for all
Well,
Guyanese.
that's
But
why I
that's the
keep
important thing.
emphasizing.
That's the important thing, and I think that is one of the things that would have struck a lot of parents, especially single parents. You have something in the budget for single parents, and you have something for the children of the single parents, and I think a lot of people look forward to that particular relief. I think that's the most outstanding thing for me in the 2014 budget,
But-
because you know the struggles that some parents go through, especially single parents, to get their children to school, and it ties right into the government's drive to reduce literacy, to get students, children who are not going to school, to get into school. Parents, some parents no longer have that excuse of not having money to purchase uniform, books, etc.
Well, I think, yeah, indeed, you're correct, Edward. You know, the other thing with this particular initiative is that apart from just helping our parents, our single parent and other parents for children who are in the public school, nursery, primary, secondary, we already have in the system feeding programs for the schools that will be continuing. You have the school uniform program. There are many other initiatives. Children get their textbooks from the school system, and there are a lot of other support. But this is also part and in keeping with the government's initiative, which pays greater attention to children, our children. You remember we set up the Child Protection Agency. We have now a whole host of legislation now addressing the issues of children, orphanages, etc. So we've seen here the government continues to place great emphasis on our children and women, of course, because I think that these are two important sets of people in our population.
And Sharda, to continue what Kwame is saying, the WOW program will continue as well.
Yeah, the WOW program has been very instrumental in helping women to start up businesses and actually provide for their households as well, because there are so many women out there, who have many children, maybe they're the sole provider. So you see them being empowered, and it's all about female empowerment and giving not only them but their household an opportunity for betterment.
Or let's go to another measure.
I'm happy for as well. I'm really happy that the sugar workers continue to be a focus for the government as well.
That was
because
I was going to lead into that discussion of $6 billion being allocated for Gaisuko. And I want you guys to put this in context, because only about a week ago, the main opposition called for the closing of the sugar factories, and then the AFC supported that position, and then subsequently we learned that they were now denying that was said. But in the context of 18,000 workers having to lose their jobs if the estates are to be closed, here's the government injecting $6 billion.
That's significant. You imagine if the sugar industries were to be closed and our 18,000 Guyanese are out of jobs. Their children, their wives, their husbands, their other dependents, mothers, fathers. We are talking approximately about 42,000 people altogether that will be out of food, something to eat, being able to take care of their bills at home, and so forth. And I'm happy that the government is not swayed by this suggestion of the opposition to close the sugar industry down. This would be a disaster for Guyana. And the $6 billion injection into the sugar industry, I think, is significant and appropriate. When we look at let's look at the U.S., for example, when you have all of the financial crisis hitting the U.S., we saw the U.S. administration through President Obama injecting huge sums to sustain the industry, the car industry, and many others. And this is what a caring government does. A government that wants to see its people progress, that wants to ensure that there is livelihood for its people, will do these things. Because after all, the governments are there to support people and ought to be supporting its people.
But that's the point I was making earlier, Kwame, when I said some people may want to see that money added to their salaries. But when you look at the broader picture, You may get a $2, $3, or $4,000 more in your salary, as in a salary increase, which you get at the end of the year most times. The government has been over the years announcing that increase at the end of the year, or you may see an increase in income tax threshold or so. But you have to look at these measures, the number of people they will affect directly or indirectly.
Dario, clearly, if there was any doubt in sugar workers' mind about any steps for government, if they were to listen to the opposition, clearly those notions were debunked this afternoon by Dr. Singh.
Not as debunked, but the firmness with which Dr. Singh recommitted the government to the protection and safeguarding of the sugar industry and the advancement of the potential of that industry is noteworthy, because we're now not just looking at the issues and want to backtrack, as the opposition would say, let's just shut it down. But we're looking at how we can strengthen what's there and inject new capital and develop new potential. Ethanol and the other derivatives will certainly come to the fore. Now, in the agriculture sector, a significant measure was also announced. A chunk of money is going to be pumped into a program that will allow farmers in all the backlands to become entrepreneurs with grant aid, to become entrepreneurs in whatever little agricultural enterprise they can engage. And I think that's pretty significant. And to tell you the truth, I feel rather proud as a Guyanese when I can look at such a progressive agenda being put forward year after year. And I look across the Caribbean and I see 3, 4 sister countries in CARICOM who have had to go back to the IMF for rescuing. And here's Guyana, year after year, recording significant growth. 5.6% for this year is projected. That's what, for
And this
5
is
years straight?
the last 8 years. The last 8 years.
Consecutive years.
That's, yeah, and the rest of the Caribbean right now, they look to Guyana because what is taking place in the Caribbean, many of the industries are closing, the governments can't afford to be able to spend on the people in the manner they would like to, and many of those governments have had to do austerity measures. And here in Guyana, we are progressing. And I always note the fact that the behavior of the opposition in Parliament in terms of the tensions, the confrontations created by the opposition in Parliament with regard to our projects, the budget cuts, etc. If we were to have those things, take it out, pretend that they didn't exist, could you imagine how further we would have been as a country with our economic development and social development? We would have been moving at a much faster pace.
But still on sugar, the fact that you mentioned the Caribbean, quite a few Caribbean countries were forced out of sugar production.
That's
and
true.
Thousands of jobs were lost. But this government took the decision that they will keep sugar, they will invest in sugar, retool, and ensure that the industry remains viable. Of course, there are challenges, but the fact that they can continue to inject this hefty sum of money into the industry, workers must feel at ease to know that the kind of things that the opposition are pushing or want to do to the industry in closing it, clearly the government has reiterated its position again this afternoon through the budget.
Any industry would have, any business would have challenges. A businessman, all businesses you see exist, they have challenges. They have staff who steal their stuff. They have to put new systems in place. They have to develop their systems. You have goods not accounted for, billing systems. Every business would have a challenge or challenges. It is not for us to give up because the challenges face us. It is not for us to close the industry.
Eddie,
Mia, the thing is, I think we have to look at the support for the sugar industry in a context. The pronouncements about closing the industry and so forth is because the only idea may be in the minds of those who are making that call is a business kind of idea. One has to see sugar. Sugar is no longer just a business for Guyana. This point was made over and over. It's a way of life. You have people who are working in the sugar industry their fathers, their grandfathers, their great grandfathers would have been in that industry.
It's a
so you have
culture.
to
It's a
see-
way of life.
Yeah, it's
All right,
it's
time-
a
But
culture.
I hope the minister doesn't get in trouble for the $6 million. You remember when
$4 billion before.
$4 billion Irfan Ali was going to transfer to the sugar industries through the sale of some lands from Gaisuku, and they took him before the Privileges Committee, or attempted to take him there. I think it was Carl Greenwich who said that Gaisuku is a black hole or something of the sort. The comment when the government tried to put the monies into Gaisuku, and they frowned on those things and they wanted to cut out of the budget. So on one hand, they speak to the fact that they're committed and they want to see the growth and development of this industry. On the other hand, they do not support the measures.
All right, time is going, guys. One of the other things that jumped out at me is the projected growth for 2014. I think it's 5.6%. That's a really good figure. It's a really great figure. 8 years of continuous growth and a projection of 5.6. It speaks a lot to the how robust the Guyana economy is, and it continues to expand. I think we have to wrap up at this point, but I'm going to give you guys a chance now. If there are other areas that jumped out at you, other measures, I can think of one. Maybe I can throw this out here in terms of assisting the development of in other areas. To some monies were allocated for dredging of the
Demerara
River
yeah.
to allow bigger
That-
ships to come in.
Yeah, but listen, there are so many things we can begin to account for them all this evening. The interland communities are not to be left out. Roads, schools, bridges, all of these have provisions for repairs, for new roads, for rehabilitated roads.
$1 billion is allocated for that.
Right.
1 billion.
1 billion Ghana dollars. And the other aspect is our bridges and our roads within other communities as well. Monies have been set aside for that, coming out of the national budget. And when you look at, as well, at the justice system, that's why I said every single sector has something to benefit from in the national budget.
All right, let me start with Dario. I'm going to give each one of you a chance now to make your final comments. Dario.
I must say that I've never been prouder to be a Guyanese. When I examine this kind of progressive agenda at work, 8 years of consecutive growth for a country that has always been frowned upon, that we've always been spat upon as the shame of the region. I can travel the region proudly now. I've been doing so for the past few years, proudly, boasting about what's happening in Guyana and inviting people to see for themselves. It's quite evident that the progressive agenda that is at work the government will stop at nothing to ensure that that progressive agenda is pushed through for the benefit of this country.
Eddie?
Yes, I think Dario is spot on with what he said. So, looking at the budget, listening to the presentation today, even though there is a theme for the budget, my theme for this budget is a little bit for everyone. The budget has something for everyone. And I think it's a budget that was well crafted, and I only hope that this budget can receive the kind of support necessary in Parliament so that we can move forward.
Sharda?
Well, just as Eddie said, and I think the finance minister alluded to that, there needs to be a concerted effort by all to push forward the agenda, the development agenda of Guyana. And I think Guyanese, the whole country is going to be watching on to see what plays out during the budget debates.
Kwame?
A fantastic budget. I can't keep. I have to lament the fact that this budget is fantastic. It's a continuation of the government's and the PPP civic government's vision for making a better life for all Guyanese. It has something for everyone. It is a budget that deserves the support of every single Guyanese, and of course we'll be looking to see when the debates commence next week what treatment it will be getting from the opposition. Of course, we know there's the court ruling that the opposition cannot cut the budget. We still await to see. But what was in thinking through of the position the opposition has taken and may take on the budget, one cannot avoid mentioning the fact that even before the budget was presented, the opposition had particular positions that they will be cutting and that they will not be supporting the budget, etc. So I think that we have to, as Guyanese, recognize that this is about Guyana. It is important for us to recognize this is a Guyana thing. The budget is not about you and I, it's about all of us. It is about making our lives better. It is about taking and advancing development, moving it to a level further than we are at the moment. And I believe that as a Guyanese, I believe that the only possible, the only reasonable, the only rational thing anyone can do at this time is to give their best support, whether from the opposition or elsewhere, their best support to the 2014 national budget.
And somebody want to ask the question, how could you decide upfront that you're going to cut when you don't know what's in the budget?
Well, that's the thing, and it baffles me because these individuals who are making the pronouncements or have made those pronouncements are supposed to be some of the most intelligent people. And here is it, you commenting on something you have no idea about, so already you have a preconceived position on the national budget. And I think it's unfortunate.
All right, that's all the time we have, and there's so many different measures in the budget. I'll add two more before we go out. One, a $500 million for the rice industry. Rice has done well over the years. There's a $5 million allocation for that. And also a $4 million US allocation for the establishment of a hospitality institute.
That's so wonderful.
Tourism here in
This
Guyana.
this is beautiful. I actually,
people and so on.
my face lighted up when I heard that, because indeed one of the problems we've had as a society while we're growing in terms of our tourism, etc., is the service. And I'm happy that there could be this dedicated effort for us improving our service with the Marriott coming on stream very shortly. We'll have the Marriott on stream providing over 300 jobs for Guyanese after its completion. We do need something like this.
So there's, as Eddie said, there's something there for everyone. The budget 2014 presented this afternoon by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashney Singh, under the theme, A Better Guyana for All Guyanese. We do hope that this little program here was able to give you an insight on some of the basic measures in the budget that is, as the PPP Sepi government continues to develop and transform Guyana. Kwame McCoy, Sharda Lal, Eddie Lane, and Daria McClellan, I want to thank you very much. Nia Suban saying so long and thank you for watching.